The horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and Lucy Grant felt the familiar pull in her stomach as the ship slowed down. She had made this journey 100 times before, but this time was different. This time she was going somewhere no human had ever gone. She stood at the viewing window and looked at the massive station floating in the darkness ahead. Council Station, Omega 9, was the last outpost before the unknown. Beyond it was nothing but empty space and whatever secrets it held. Pete walked up beside her and crossed his arms. He was a quiet man who rarely showed emotion, but Lucy could see the tension in his jaw. They had served together for 12 years, and she knew him better than anyone. "You sure about this?" he asked. Lucy nodded slowly. "We did not come all this way to turn back." The docking procedure took 20 minutes, and then they were walking through the cold metal corridors of the station. Alien species moved around them in every direction. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated or crawled or moved in ways that Lucy still found strange after all her years in space. The galaxy was full of life, and most of it wanted nothing to do with the region Lucy planned to explore. Ambassador was waiting for them in the main council chamber. He was a species that looked like giant insects with shiny black shells and multiple arms. His eyes reflected the light as he watched Lucy approach. She had dealt with before and knew they were a nervous species, but looked more than nervous. He looked terrified. "Captain Grant," he said through his translator device, "we received your request. The council has discussed it. We must refuse." Lucy had expected this. "I would like to know why." Made a clicking sound that his translator did not convert. Around the chamber, other representatives from other species began to gather. Lucy counted 12 different races watching her, with expressions that ranged from curiosity to horror. "You wish to enter the Void Passage," said. "This is not permitted." "With respect, Ambassador, humans are not members of the Council. You cannot forbid us from going anywhere." "We are not forbidding," replied. "We are warning. The Void Passage has claimed 17 expeditions over 3,000 years, ships from the, and many others. None have returned, not one survivor, not one piece of wreckage, not even the automated probes we sent came back." Pete shifted beside Lucy. 17 expeditions in 3,000 years is not many. Perhaps the technology was not good enough. A tall reptilian creature stepped forward. Lucy recognized him as one of the oldest species in the galaxy. His scales were gray with age and his voice was deep and tired. "I am Counselor Myraset," he said. "I have studied the Void Passage for 200 years. The technology of those expeditions was more than sufficient. The who went 2 centuries ago had ships better than yours. They had weapons and shields and sensors that could detect a grain of sand from 1,000 kilometers away. It did not matter. They entered the void and they screamed and then they were silent." Lucy felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her face calm. "What made them scream?" Myraset looked at her for a long moment. "We do not know. The final transmissions from every expedition are filled with terror. They speak of something that cannot be described. Something that breaks the mind before it breaks the body. The captain was a veteran of 40 years. She had faced pirates and wars and disasters. In her last message, she was crying like a child and begging for forgiveness." The chamber was silent. Lucy could feel the weight of every alien gaze pressing down on her. They were not trying to control her. They were genuinely afraid for her. "What do the signals from the region show?" she asked. "Wrong," said simply. "The signals are wrong. Our scientists cannot explain it better than that. The energy patterns do not match anything in our databases. They feel like something alive and hungry and waiting." Lucy turned to Pete. He shook his head slightly, telling her without words that this was insane. She knew it was insane. Every rational part of her brain was telling her to thank the council for their warning and go home. But Lucy Grant had not become the youngest captain in the exploration fleet by being rational. "I understand your concerns," she said to the council, "and I appreciate your honesty, but humans have a saying, we do not know what we are capable of until we try. Made another clicking sound. Your species is young. You have been in space for only 800 years. You do not understand what waits in the darkness. Maybe that is exactly why we should go, Lucy replied. You have all been afraid of the void for 3,000 years. Maybe it is time for someone new to take a look. The council members exchanged glances. Lucy could see them communicating in ways she did not understand. Finally, Myricet stepped forward again. We cannot stop you, he said, but we will not help you either. If you enter the void passage, you do so alone. No rescue will come. No search party will follow. You will be forgotten as if you never existed. Lucy nodded. I understand. She turned and walked out of the chamber with Pete beside her. They did not speak until they were back on the horizon with the airlock sealed behind them. That was either very brave or very stupid, Pete said. Lucy smiled, probably both. She walked to the bridge where her crew was waiting. Park looked up from his science station with eager eyes. Cole sat at the pilot controls with her usual calm expression. Sam was checking the engine readings on his tablet. Well asked, what did they say? They said everyone who goes into the void dies screaming, Lucy replied. They said we are fools for trying. Grinned, so we are going. Lucy looked at her crew. These people had followed her across the galaxy. They had trusted her with their lives more times than she could count. She owed them the truth. The council is hiding something, she said. I could see it in their eyes. They are not just afraid of the void, they are afraid of what it means, and I want to know why. Pete sighed. I was afraid you would say that. Began entering coordinates into the navigation system. Course plotted, Captain. We can reach the edge of the void passage in 6 hours. Lucy sat down in her chair and looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there was something that had terrified a dozen species for thousands of years, something that no one had survived, and she was going to find out what it was. Take us in, she said. The horizon turned toward the unknown and began to fly. Lucy could not sleep. She lay in her small cabin and stared at the ceiling while the ship hummed around her. In 4 hours they would reach the edge of the void passage. In 4 hours she would lead her crew into a region that had killed everyone who entered it. She kept thinking about the captain crying in her final transmission. What could make a veteran of 40 years break down like that? Her door chimed softly. She sat up and said, "Come in." The door slid open and Counselor Myricet stood in the corridor. His gray scales looked dull in the low light, and his old eyes were filled with something Lucy had not seen before. It looked like guilt. "May I speak with you privately?" he asked. Lucy nodded and gestured for him to enter. It was too tall for her cabin, so he bent down and folded his long body into a crouch. It should have looked awkward, but somehow he made it seem dignified. I lied to you, he said simply. The council lied to you. We know more than we admitted. Lucy felt her heart beat faster. What do you know? Myricet pulled a small device from his robes and set it on her table. A holographic image appeared showing a female sitting in a captain's chair. She looked calm at first, professional. Her forearms were folded neatly and her voice was steady as she began to speak. This is Captain Nari of the research vessel Seeker. We have been in the void passage for approximately 9 hours. Initial scans showed nothing unusual. Empty space. Strange energy readings, but nothing dangerous. The captain paused and Lucy saw something change in her eyes. A flicker of doubt. 3 hours ago my crew began reporting strange sensations, dreams while awake, visions of things that frightened them. My first officer saw his children dying in a fire. My pilot saw herself trapped in a cage forever. I thought it was stress. I thought it would pass. The captain's voice began to shake. It did not pass. It got worse. The visions became real. I can see them now even as I speak. I see my mother who died when I was young. She is standing behind me and telling me I was never good enough. She is telling me that I failed her. I know she is not real, but I can feel her breath on my neck." Tears began to fall from the captain's eyes. Her four arms uncrossed and wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. "Something is in here with us, something that knows what we fear. It speaks without sound. It shows us our worst nightmares and makes us believe they are happening. My crew is screaming. I can hear them through the walls. Some have hurt themselves trying to escape visions that exist only in their minds." The captain looked directly at the camera. Her eyes were wide with terror. "If anyone receives this message, do not come here. Do not try to rescue us. There is nothing to rescue. We are already broken. Whatever lives in the void does not want to kill us. It wants to feed on our fear until there is nothing left." She took a shaking breath. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I thought I was brave. I thought I could handle anything. But this thing has shown me what I really am. A frightened child pretending to be strong." The transmission ended with static. Lucy sat in silence for a long moment. "Why did you hide this?" she asked. Myricet looked down at his clawed hands. "Because we are ashamed. They were one of the bravest species in the galaxy. If they could be broken so easily, then what hope did any of us have? We told ourselves it was better to simply avoid the void. Better to pretend it did not exist than admit that something out there was stronger than all of us. But you came to tell me anyway." "Because you are human," Myricet said, "and humans are different." Lucy frowned. "Different how?" "I have studied your species for many years. You fascinate me. You evolved on a world filled with predators and disasters. Your ancestors were hunted by creatures with bigger teeth and sharper claws. They faced ice ages and plagues and wars. And yet you survived. Not because you were the strongest or the fastest, but because you could feel fear and keep moving anyway." He leaned closer, and his old eyes locked onto hers. "Every species in the galaxy feels fear. It is a survival instinct. But most species are controlled by their fear. When danger appears, they freeze or flee or fight without thinking. Humans are the only species I have found who can feel terror in their hearts and still make rational decisions. You do not ignore fear. You do not pretend it does not exist. You acknowledge it and then you choose to act anyway." Lucy thought about this. She thought about all the times she had been afraid in her life. The first time she flew a ship alone. The battle at station when half her crew died. The moment she realized her father was not coming back from his final mission. She had been terrified every single time, but she had kept going. "You think that might protect us?" she said. "I do not know," Myricet admitted. "But I think you have a better chance than anyone else. The entity in the void feeds on fear that overwhelms. It breaks minds that cannot compartmentalize terror. But humans have been doing that for your entire existence. You feel afraid and you keep working. You have nightmares and you wake up and go to your jobs. You watch your loved ones die and you still find reasons to live." He stood up slowly and moved toward the door. "I am giving you this information because you deserve to know what you face. Perhaps it will help you prepare. Perhaps it will make no difference at all. But I wanted you to understand that I do not think you are fools for trying. I think you might be the only ones brave enough to succeed." Lucy watched him go. Then she picked up the device with the transmission and walked to the bridge. Her crew needed to know what was coming. Listened to the transmission 3 times. His face was pale, but his eyes were bright with curiosity. "It is a psychological attack," he said. "The entity finds your fears and amplifies them until you cannot function." "So how do we fight it?" Pete asked. Thought for a moment. "We do not fight it, we accept it." Looked up from her controls. "Accept being terrified out of our minds." "Yes," said. "The other species tried to resist. They tried to push the fear away or pretend it was not real. But that does not work with fear. The more you fight it, the stronger it gets. Humans have a different approach. We acknowledge our fear. We let ourselves feel it. And then we do what needs to be done anyway." Lucy nodded slowly. So when the visions come, we do not try to block them out. We let them happen and we keep working. Exactly, said. Fear is just a feeling. It cannot actually hurt us unless we let it control our actions. The entity expects its victims to break when they see their worst nightmares. It does not expect anyone to look at their nightmare and say, okay, that is scary now, let me get back to my job. Pete laughed despite himself. That might be the most human thing I have ever heard. Sam spoke up from his engineering station. I have been scared plenty of times. Scared when my ship caught fire during the Mars run. Scared when my daughter was born 3 months early. But I kept my hands steady because people were counting on me. That is what we need, Lucy said. Whatever this thing shows us, we remember that our crew is counting on us. We feel the fear and we keep our hands steady. The horizon flew on toward the darkness ahead. The boundary of the void passage was not visible on any scanner. There was no line in space that marked where safety ended and danger began. But Lucy knew the moment they crossed it. She felt it in her bones like a cold wind passing through her body. "We are in," said quietly. Her voice was steady, but her knuckles were white on the controls. Watched his screens with intense focus. Energy readings are strange. I have never seen patterns like this before. It is almost like the space itself is alive. They flew in silence for the first hour. Nothing happened. The stars looked the same as they always did. The ship hummed with its normal sounds. Lucy began to wonder if maybe the council had exaggerated the danger. Then Pete spoke. "Do you see that?" Lucy turned to look at him. He was staring at an empty corner of the bridge with wide eyes. There was nothing there. "See what?" she asked. "My brother," Pete said softly. "He is standing right there. He is asking me why I let him die." Lucy felt her stomach drop. Pete's brother had died 15 years ago in a shuttle accident. Pete had been the one flying. He had blamed himself ever since, even though everyone told him it was not his fault. "Pete," she said firmly, "your brother is not here. It is the entity. It is showing you what you fear most." Pete nodded slowly. His hands were shaking, but he took a deep breath and turned away from the empty corner. I know he is not real, but I can hear his voice so clearly." Sam suddenly grabbed the edge of his console. "Captain, I see fire. The engine room is on fire." He looked around wildly. "I have to put it out. I have to save the ship." Lucy walked over and put her hand on his shoulder. "Sam, look at me. There is no fire. Your sensors would tell you if there was a fire. Check your readings." Sam stared at his tablet for a long moment. The numbers showed normal temperatures everywhere. He exhaled slowly and some of the panic left his eyes. Right. No fire, just in my head." Was crying silently at her station. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but her hands stayed steady on the controls, and she kept flying the ship on course. "What do you see?" Lucy asked gently. "I am lost," whispered. "I am floating in darkness and I cannot find my way home. I have been floating forever and I will never see anyone again." "You are not lost," Lucy told her. "You know exactly where we are. You plotted the course yourself. Can you tell me our coordinates?" Blinked and focused on her navigation display. "We are 14,000 kilometers into the void passage. Bearing 072 Mark 15. Speed is stable." "Good," Lucy said. "You know where we are. You are not lost. Keep flying." Was the of all of them. He sat at his station and watched his readings while occasionally glancing at something only he could see. "What is it showing you?" Lucy asked. "My father said. He is telling me I wasted my life becoming a scientist instead of a doctor like him. He is telling me I was always a disappointment," smiled slightly. "He told me that when he was alive too. I had a lot of practice ignoring it." Lucy walked back to her chair and sat down. The moment she did, she saw him. Her father stood in front of the viewing window with his back to her. He was wearing his old uniform, the one he wore the day he left on his final mission. He turned slowly and looked at her with sad eyes. "You could not save me," he said. "You were not good enough. You were never good enough." Lucy gripped the arms of her chair. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She had been 14 years old when her father died. She had spent the next 30 years trying to prove that she was worthy of his memory, and here he was telling her she had failed. "I know you are not real," she said out loud. The bridge crew looked at her, but she kept her eyes on the vision of her father. "I know you are something this entity created to break me, but I am going to tell you something anyway." She stood up and faced the ghost. "I could not save you because I was a child. There was nothing I could have done. I spent my whole life feeling guilty for something that was never my fault, but I am not that scared little girl anymore. I am the captain of this ship. I am responsible for these people, and I will not let you or anything else stop me from protecting them." Her father's face twisted with anger. "You will fail. You will watch them die just like you watched me die." "Maybe," Lucy said, "but I will keep trying until my last breath. That is what you taught me. Not with words, but with your example. You died trying to save others. I will live the same way." The vision flickered. For a moment her father looked proud instead of angry. Then he was gone. Lucy sat back down and looked at her crew. They were all struggling, all seeing things that terrified them, but they were still at their stations, still doing their jobs. "Listen to me," she said. "The entity is trying to overwhelm us with fear. It expects us to break like all the others did, but we are not going to break. We are going to feel afraid and keep working. Every time you see something terrible, I want you to say out loud what you are actually doing. Focus on the task in front of you. Fear is just weather. It passes." Pete nodded and turned to his console. "I am monitoring communication channels. All frequencies are clear." Sam took a shaky breath. "I am checking engine status. All systems are operating normally." Wiped her eyes with one hand while the other stayed on the controls. "I am maintaining course and speed. We are on target." Actually laughed. "I am analyzing the energy readings and finding them fascinating despite my dead father telling me I am worthless." Lucy smiled despite everything. This was what humans did. They felt terrified and they made jokes about it. They faced the worst things imaginable and they kept moving forward. "How much further to the center?" she asked. Checked his readings. "At current speed, we will reach the source of the energy patterns in approximately 3 hours. 3 more hours of facing their worst nightmares. 3 more hours of feeling fear so intense it had broken species who had traveled the stars for." Lucy settled into her chair and watched the darkness ahead. "Then we better get comfortable. This is going to be a long flight." The visions kept coming. Sometimes they were subtle, like whispered voices saying cruel things. Sometimes they were overwhelming, like walking into a room full of everyone you ever lost. But the crew of the Horizon did what humans have always done. They acknowledged their fear and they kept their hands steady. Outside the ship, the entity watched them with something that might have been curiosity. In 3,000 years, it had never seen anything like this. These strange, small creatures were feeling everything it threw at them. Their hearts were racing. Their minds were full of terror, but they would not stop. For the first time in its ancient existence, the entity began to wonder if it had finally found what it was looking for. The structure appeared on their sensors before they could see it with their eyes. Stared at his readings with his mouth open. "That is impossible," he said. Lucy walked over to look at his screen. "What are you seeing?" "The energy signature. It is not coming from a ship or a station. It is coming from something organic, something alive." He ran more calculations and his face went pale. "Captain, this thing is older than our sun. It has been here for millions of years." The horizon flew closer, and finally the viewing window showed them what waited at the heart of the void. Lucy heard gasp behind her. She understood why. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The structure looked like a massive flower made of metal and flesh twisted together. Petals of dark material spread out for kilometers in every direction. Lights pulsed along its surface like blood flowing through veins. At the center was something that looked almost like an eye. It was watching them. "All stop," Lucy ordered. Brought the ship to a halt. They floated in space before the ancient thing and waited. The voice came without sound. It appeared directly in their minds like a thought that was not their own. Lucy felt it push against her consciousness and resisted the urge to push back. She let it in. "You are still functioning," the voice said. It sounded surprised. "Your minds are intact. Your bodies are responding to your commands. This has not happened before." Lucy stood and faced the viewing window. "Who are you? What is this place?" "I am the Guardian. I was placed here by those who came before. My purpose is to test those who seek to pass beyond." "Test them how?" Pete asked. "By showing them what they fear. By amplifying the terror that lives in every conscious mind. Those who cannot master their fear are not worthy of what lies beyond. They are turned back or they are broken. In 3,000 years of testing, none have passed." Stepped forward with excitement overcoming his fear. "You are a filter. You were designed to separate species who can handle psychological stress from those who cannot." "Yes," the Guardian confirmed. "The ones who made me believe that only those with true mental strength should be allowed to expand beyond this galaxy. Fear is the ultimate test. It reveals what a being truly is when all pretense is stripped away." Lucy thought about the captain crying in her final transmission. She thought about all the other species who had come here with hope and left with nothing but screaming. "What happens to those who pass?" she asked. The Guardian pulsed with light, and suddenly Lucy was somewhere else. She stood on a platform looking out at a swirling vortex of energy. Through it she could see stars she did not recognize. Billions of them. A whole new galaxy waiting to be explored. "The reward for courage," the Guardian said. "A gateway to regions of space that no one from your galaxy has ever seen. New worlds, new civilizations, knowledge beyond imagining. This is what awaits those who can face their fear and not be destroyed by it." Lucy blinked, and she was back on the bridge of the horizon. Her crew was staring at her with questions in their eyes. "I saw it too," breathed. "A gateway, it is real." The Guardian's presence pressed against their minds again. "You have come further than any before you, but I do not understand why. Explain to me how you resist what has broken all others." Lucy considered the question carefully. This was important. This might be the most important conversation any human had ever had. "We do not resist," she said. "We feel everything you throw at us. Right now, every person on this ship is terrified. Our hearts are beating fast. Our hands want to shake. Our minds want to run away and hide." "Then why do you not break?" "Because we have practice," Lucy said simply. "Humans evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. Predators hunted us. Diseases swept through our populations. Natural disasters destroyed our homes. We learned very early that fear is part of existence. You cannot escape it. You cannot hide from it. So we developed a different approach." She took a breath and continued. "We feel the fear and we keep moving. We acknowledge that we are terrified and then we do what needs to be done anyway. Our ancestors were afraid when they faced lions on the savannah, but they picked up spears and fought back. Our parents were afraid when they watched their children get sick, but they stayed by their beds and cared for them. We are afraid right now, but we are still standing here talking to you." The Guardian was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, there was something different in its voice, something almost like respect. The others tried to suppress their fear. They told themselves they were not afraid. They pretended the terror was not real. But you cannot lie to fear. It knows when you are pretending. And when the lie fails, the fear comes back stronger than before. "We do not lie to ourselves," Pete said. "We admit we are scared. Sometimes we even joke about it. Fear loses some of its power when you look at it directly instead of trying to hide from it." Nodded eagerly. It is a psychological technique. By acknowledging the emotion and accepting it as valid, you prevent it from escalating. The fear is still there, but it does not control your behavior. The Guardian pulsed with color. The great eye at its center seemed to focus more intensely on the small ship floating before it. In all my existence, I have never encountered minds like yours. You feel fear as strongly as any species, perhaps more strongly because your senses are so acute, but you have learned to carry it with you instead of being crushed by it. You walk with your terror beside you like a companion instead of running from it like an enemy. Is that enough? Lucy asked. Have we passed your test? Not yet, the Guardian replied. You have shown me something remarkable, but the final test remains. I must know if you can face not just fear but absolute fear, the deepest terror that exists in your heart, the thing you cannot joke about or accept or carry with you. I must know if a human can look into the abyss of their own soul and survive. Lucy felt cold spread through her chest. What do you mean? One of you must face the final trial alone. Complete isolation, total vulnerability, no crew to support you, no tasks to focus on, just you and the thing you fear most in all existence. The crew looked at each other. Lucy could see the willingness in their eyes. Every single one of them would volunteer if she asked. But she was the captain. This was her responsibility. I will do it, she said. Lucy, no. Pete grabbed her arm. Let me. I have faced my worst fear already. My brother, I can do this. It has to be me, Lucy told him. I brought us here. I asked you all to follow me into the darkness. I will not ask anyone else to take this risk. She turned to face the Guardian. I am ready. Do what you need to do. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was her crew reaching out toward her with fear and love in their eyes. Then she was alone. Completely alone. And the real test began. Lucy floated in nothing. There was no ship around her, no stars, no light of any kind, just endless empty darkness that stretched forever in every direction. She could not feel her body. She could not hear her own heartbeat. There was only her mind and the void. Time passed. She did not know how much. It could have been minutes or hours or years. In the darkness, there was no way to measure anything. Then the voices started. At first they were whispers, people she had known throughout her life speaking softly in the distance. Her mother asking why she never came home for holidays. Her first commander telling her she would never amount to anything. Friends she had lost touch with wondering if she ever really cared about them at all. The whispers grew louder and became a chorus of everyone who had ever doubted her, everyone she had ever disappointed, every relationship she had let fade because she was too busy with her career. You left us behind, they said together. You chose the stars over the people who loved you, and now you are alone, just like you always wanted. Lucy tried to speak, but she had no voice in this place. She could only listen. The scene changed. She was standing at her father's funeral watching his coffin lower into the ground, but she was older now. She was the age she was today, and as she watched the coffin descend, she saw another one beside it, and another, and another. Pete, Sam, every member of her crew was being buried beside her father, and standing at the edge of the graves were the other captains she had known who had died on missions, the other explorers who had pushed too far and lost everything. This is your future, a voice said. It was her own voice, but colder and emptier than she had ever heard it. You will lead them to their deaths. You always do. That is what you are. A woman who destroys everyone who trusts her. Lucy felt herself falling into despair. The darkness around her seemed to grow heavier. It pressed against her thoughts and tried to crush them flat. Then something worse happened. The scene changed again, and now there was nothing. No funeral, no voices, no memories, just Lucy floating in the void while time stretched into infinity. And slowly she began to realize that no one was coming. She was forgotten. Not dead, just forgotten. Her crew had moved on without her. Her friends had stopped thinking about her. The universe continued spinning and she was not part of it anymore. She was nothing, a faded memory that would eventually disappear entirely. This was her deepest fear. Not death, not failure, but being erased, becoming so insignificant that her existence made no difference at all. She lived through years of this, floating alone while the certainty grew that no one remembered her name. No one told stories about her. No one even noticed she was gone. And in that moment of absolute despair, Lucy Grant made a choice. She stopped fighting. She let the loneliness wash over her completely. She accepted that maybe she would be forgotten. Maybe her life would not matter. Maybe she would float in this darkness forever and never see another living soul. And then she thought about her crew. They would not forget her. Even if she never returned, they would carry her memory with them. They would tell stories about the captain who faced the void. They would name their children after her and raise them to be brave. Her existence mattered because she had touched their lives. And even if the universe forgot her name, the people she loved would remember. More than that, she realized something else. Her value did not depend on being remembered at all. She had lived, she had loved, she had faced her fears and pushed forward into the unknown. Whether anyone remembered her or not, those things were real. They had happened. Nothing could take them away. I accept it, she said into the darkness. Somehow she had a voice again. I accept that I might be forgotten. I accept that my life might not matter to the universe, but it matters to me, and that is enough. The darkness shattered. Lucy gasped and found herself back on the bridge of the horizon. Her crew surrounded her with tears in their eyes. Pete was holding her shoulders like he was afraid she would disappear again, was checking her vital signs with shaking hands, and Sam were standing close with expressions of pure relief. "How long?" Lucy asked. Her voice was hoarse like she had not used it in years. 37 minutes, Pete said. But it felt longer. We could not reach you. We could not do anything but wait. The Guardian's voice filled the bridge once more. You have passed the final trial. In all my existence, I have never seen a being accept oblivion and choose to keep living anyway. Most species define themselves by their legacy, by what they will leave behind. You defined yourself by the simple act of existing, by loving and being loved in the present moment. Lucy stood slowly with Pete's help. Her legs were weak, but her mind was clear. "Does that mean we can pass through the gateway?" she asked. "Yes, the way is open to you and your species, but more than that, I offer you a gift. I have guarded this passage for millions of years. I have seen countless species try and fail. Humans are the first to succeed. You have earned the right to share what you have learned." The Guardian pulsed with light, and suddenly Lucy understood. The other species had not failed because they were weak. They had failed because no one taught them how to carry their fear, but humans could teach them. "Return to the council," the Guardian said. "Tell them what you have done. Offer to guide them through the void. With human help, other species may learn to master their terror as you have. The universe is vast, and there is room for all who can find the courage to face it." The journey back through the void passage was strange. The visions still came, but they felt weaker now, like echoes instead of screams. Lucy and her crew had looked their fears directly in the face and kept moving. The entity had nothing left to threaten them with. When they emerged into normal space and docked at Council Station, Omega-9 Ambassador was waiting for them. His compound eyes were wide with shock. "You returned," he said. "How is this possible?" Lucy smiled. "We were afraid the entire time. We just did not let it stop us." Counselor Myraset pushed through the crowd of aliens who had gathered to see the impossible. His old face was filled with wonder. "Tell us everything," he said. Lucy told them. She explained about the Guardian and the test and the gateway waiting on the other side. She told them about human psychology and the ability to function while terrified. She offered to help train other species in the techniques that had kept her crew sane. "You would share this with us?" asked. even though we tried to stop you, even though we called you fools. You were trying to protect us, Lucy said, and you were right that the void is dangerous, but you were wrong that it was impossible. We just needed to approach it differently. In the weeks that followed, the first joint expedition was organized. Humans would accompany and ships into the void. They would teach breathing techniques and grounding exercises. They would help aliens face their fears the way humans had learned to do. Not everyone would pass. Some minds were simply not built to carry terror the way humans could, but many would. The galaxy would expand beyond its old boundaries. New stars would be explored. New civilizations would be contacted. And it all started because a species who evolved running from predators on a tiny blue planet learned that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to keep moving anyway. Lucy stood at the viewing window of the horizon and looked out at the stars. Somewhere beyond the void was a gateway to another galaxy. Somewhere out there were wonders no one had ever imagined. And humanity would be the ones to find them. Not because they were the bravest, not because they were the strongest, but because they were stubborn enough to feel terrified and keep walking forward. That was the gift humans had to offer the universe. The simple, stubborn refusal to let fear win.